She's trapped in fear, haunted by the knowledge of when everyone will die, and the most terrifying part is, she knows exactly when her own time will come. Then, one unexpected encounter turns everything upside down. Now, she faces a choice: keep living life by the clock, or challenge time itself. Mika is a young woman with a unique ability. She can see exactly how much time each person has left before they die. More than that, she knows the exact date she's destined to die herself. With only 167 days left, Mika refuses to give in to despair. Instead of falling into depression, she holds on to hope and strength, signing up for every audition in town since she's a talented singer and actress. One day, while riding a bus over a bridge, Mika witnesses a horrifying car accident. She gets off to check on the injured and sees many people hurt, but she isn't worried about most of them, knowing they have long, happy lives ahead. Her attention is drawn to an elderly couple, where the woman has a minor arm injury and needs medical help. After giving her a bandage, Mika notices that the man has less than 2 minutes left to live. Knowing nothing can save him, Mika asks the wife to stay by her husband's side in his final moments. Moments later, he suffers a heart attack and dies in his wife's arms. A few months later, Mika prepares for another audition for an upcoming play. Before heading out, she visits her grandmother in the hospital. The elderly woman wants to look her best because she's recently met an older man and hopes to start a relationship. Mika is happy for her grandmother, but her mood darkens when she learns that the man will die in just 67 days. Her grandmother still has several years left, and Mika doesn't want her to be sad losing someone she loves. Another key character is Doha, the president of a major company. Young and known for his arrogance and cold demeanor, he is currently in the hospital at the request of his personal assistant. The assistant's brother is a psychotherapist, called in to treat Doha for anxiety caused by past trauma. His former girlfriend suffered greatly, nearly dying, but he doesn't remember her face or name. Haunted by anxiety, he avoids danger and unpredictable people. After their first session, the therapist encourages Doha to face his fears, starting with getting behind the wheel for the first time in a long while. As Doha prepares to leave, he gets distracted by a flower petal and doesn't notice a car behind him. When the other driver honks, Doha panics and suddenly reverses, accidentally hitting a young woman. By incredible coincidence, that woman is Mika. She doesn't want trouble or long disputes and is ready to leave the scene, but Doha notices she's limping and needs medical attention. Because of a tight bandage, Mika is late for her audition and asks Doha for a ride. Knowing he's afraid to drive, Mika offers to switch places. A skilled driver, she speeds through the city at over 60 miles per hour, getting them to the concert hall just in time. As she rushes off, she accidentally takes the car keys with her, leaving Doha stranded and forced to follow her on foot. At the concert hall, Doha watches Mika perform. One of the judges praises her vocal talent but criticizes her for not showing enough emotion. Determined to prove them wrong, Mika impulsively seeks out someone to confess love to. The only familiar person nearby is Doha himself. She rushes over and kisses him on the lips. The shock leaves Doha stunned, and he pushes her away. Mika fails the audition. Crushed by yet another lost chance at fame, Mika sinks into despair. But her friend Sung-hee offers support and encouragement, convinced Mika's future is bright. Yet Sung-hee hides her own sadness, knowing what Mika sees, the relentless countdown only Mika can see. They wish the timer could be cheated, but Mika knows better. She once tried to save a little girl by throwing herself in front of a truck, but the child still died just feet away. Meanwhile, Doha proposes to his fiancée, Bae, the daughter of a powerful businessman. Bae isn't after money, she wants real love. Rejecting Doha's proposal for the 5th time, she challenges him to come up with something more thoughtful. During a tense family dinner, Doha clashes with his father and older brother, who dismiss his passion for the arts and theater as a waste of time. Unwilling to back down, Doha decides to travel to China to meet with a sponsor and secure a series of upcoming shows. That night, Doha is plagued by restless nightmares, one of which features the persistent image of Mika. Hoping to forget her, he heads to China, only to find that she's staying at the same hotel. Mika was invited as a professional diver responsible for the safety of wealthy diving enthusiasts. One of these clients is Mr. Chang, Doha's business partner. At first, Mr. Chang ignores Doha, but when he learns that Doha's fiancée is also his former classmate, the two men start talking and agree to go diving together. Later that evening, returning to his room, Doha encounters a drunk woman near the pool. He's shocked to see Mika, and even more shocked by her disheveled appearance and vacant stare, which makes her seem like someone who's already given up on life. Just as Mika stumbles and nearly falls into the pool, Doha catches her and carries her inside. She falls asleep in his arms, so he takes her to his room. Early the next morning, Mika sneaks out, but they cross paths again on a yacht. Doha reminds her of her reckless behavior the night before and how she's become his personal nightmare. Embarrassed and apologetic, Mika barely remembers the events due to the alcohol. Soon after, the group of wealthy divers sets out to explore the underwater scenery. The psychotherapist and assistant who came with Doha are wary of the plan but can't talk him out of it. This daring move is Doha's only chance to secure the contract with Mr. Chang. As they dive to the ocean floor, Doha struggles to stay calm but panics while resurfacing. Everyone else makes it to the surface, except Doha. Seeing this, Mika dives back in to save him. When their hands touch underwater, Mika notices something extraordinary. The countdown tattoo on her arm suddenly stops. Moments later, Mika feels like she's drowning, then suddenly finds herself on a deserted island, wearing a clean, dry dress. Confused and disoriented, she can't make sense of what's happening, until she meets her late grandmother. The elderly woman tells Mika she's been watching over her from above and that it's time for Mika to join her and become a star. Suddenly, Mika snaps awake in her cabin, thinking it was all just a nightmare. She remembers the watch on her wrist had stopped ticking but chalks it up to another dream trick. To her shock, a few seconds later, the countdown freezes again, this time because Doha has shown up. Not believing her own eyes, Mika wonders if she's actually dead and starts pacing the yacht in a panic. Whenever she moves away from Doha, the timer resumes counting down, but whenever he's close, it stops again. After hearing Mika's story, Doha suspects she might be losing it and insists she see a therapist for another evaluation. Later, he meets with Mr. Chang to talk business. The investor is ready to pour serious money into the project, but only if a successful and talented producer named Jo Jae-yu is brought on board. Bet sweetens the deal by promising to influence her husband, who happens to be a former classmate of Mr. Chang. Shortly after, Bet asks for 1,000 hand-folded paper cranes as a condition for moving forward. Doha, who struggles with emotions and doesn't understand romantic gestures, calls it a silly waste of time and suggests just buying a live bird instead, much to Bet's disappointment. A few days later, Mika returns home and shares everything with her friend. Young-hee believes Doha is Mika's destiny. She's not concerned with why Mika's watch is acting strange. What matters is that Doha's presence is keeping her alive. Young-hee urges Mika to confirm her feelings and start taking action to get his attention. Sneaking into the office one day, Mika hides behind a wall and watches as her watch freezes for a moment when Doha walks by. Realizing he's the key to controlling her fate and postponing her death, she makes a firm decision to do whatever it takes to stay by his side. Acting persistently, almost annoyingly, Mika seizes every chance to be near Doha. She runs into him on a rainy street, ready to share her umbrella. She follows him to a nightclub and then to the bar, hoping for a kiss. When all her efforts fail, Mika finds out that Doha has a fiancé, and they're about to announce their wedding date. The news hits her hard, but Young-hee comforts her, suggesting it's likely a sham marriage for status, no real feelings involved. Meanwhile, Young-hee has exciting news. Jo Jae-yu has been appointed producer of the upcoming musicals, and Mika's best friend will be his assistant. Inspired, Mika realizes she now has two goals: to try to win over Doha and to work hard at rehearsals to pass the audition and become a successful actress. At the same time, Doha meets with Jo Jae-yu to discuss their collaboration. The producer is eager to work but insists on personally approving all actors and staff. Finding this arrogant, the businessman tries to find another producer, but there's no one more talented in Korea, so he reluctantly agrees to work with Jo Jae-yu. During rehearsals, Doha starts seeing Mika everywhere. At first, he thinks she's stalking him, but soon realizes these are hallucinations brought on by his own anxiety. After consulting a therapist, he learns he might be in love with her. He denies it at first but finds himself thinking about Mika more and more. A week of intense rehearsals later, Mika is ready for the musical audition. Doha, who's directing productions in Korea and China, arrives to oversee the producer's work. When Jo Jae-yu steps away to take a call, Mika takes the stage and stuns everyone with her incredible singing. Spotting Doha in the audience, she sings even more passionately, bringing some listeners to tears. But Young-hee is disappointed. Jo Jae-yu barely acknowledges Mika's performance. Afterward, Mika tries to talk to Doha, but he avoids her, afraid of his growing feelings and racing heart. The next morning, Mika meets with her grandmother to talk about how to win a man over. The wise elder advises her to be genuine and sincere. Only by showing true feelings and desires can she reach him. Determined, Mika goes to Doha's office and accidentally signs up for a driver's job interview. She reminds him she's a skilled racer who's already driven his car and did a great job. Thinking Mika's only after money and status, Doha tries to avoid her and leaves, but Mika keeps pursuing him. Stopping him at the entrance to the underground parking, Mika begs him to listen. She insists she needs him and clings tightly to his hand. He doubts her seriousness and tries to push her away, but she won't let go. He's her only hope. Suddenly, 3 rowdy troublemakers interrupt them, landing all of them at the police station. During questioning, it becomes clear these guys are Young-hee's friends, deliberately staging the encounter to trigger Doha's protective instincts over vulnerable Mika. Doha wants to leave but has to wait while the detective sorts things out. Exhausted by work and Mika's relentless pursuit, he falls asleep, but even in his dreams, he mumbles her name. Watching her cling to his sleeve and cry, Doha realizes he's in love with her. More than that, he's ready to give her a chance but doesn't want it to seem like a weakness. What touches him most is a flower petal mysteriously appearing inside the locked building, as if a sign that he's doing the right thing. The moment Doha takes Mika's hand, time not only stops but begins to move backward. Some time later, Doha's assistant arrives at the police station to get both the boss and Mika released. The secretary is skeptical of Mika since she lied about knowing the boss just to get into his office during the driver interview. Not wanting the assistant to disrespect Mika, Doha quickly shuts him down. As they leave the station, Doha offers Mika the driver position and hands her the car keys, which lights up her face with pure joy. Watching her dance with a friend, Doha smiles softly, secretly feeling a growing fondness for her. The next morning, Mika heads to work and arrives at the boss's house early, determined not to disappoint him or lose the job. For the first time, she lets her guard down, singing happily without realizing Doha is watching her with interest. After dropping off the assistant, Doha heads to his office but keeps an eye on Mika. He notices her bright and cheerful spirit but has no idea what's really going on beneath the surface. Meanwhile, Mika can't quite say she's happy, because whenever she's near him, time seems to stop, and that somehow keeps her alive. Soon, Doha's fiancé receives a gift. Instead of making paper cranes, Doha sends her coins stamped with crane images. The coins were minted the year Bae was born, which pleasantly surprises her. She promises to return the favor with a surprise of her own but keeps the details to herself. After a phone call with his fiancé, Doha can't get Mika out of his mind. Her face seems to be everywhere. He tries to remind himself that he's about to marry someone else and shouldn't be thinking about the driver, but it's no use. Meanwhile, Mika signs a contract with the secretary and tries to build a friendly rapport, but he remains wary and suspicious. Later, Doha heads to a business meeting at a restaurant. He learns that Mr. Chang is ready to sign the contract, but only if Bae is there for the deal. Trying to focus on work, Doha gets distracted watching Mika. No matter how hard he tries, he can't hide his smile, realizing he's growing more and more drawn to her. On the way to the pool, Doha wonders why Mika seems so genuinely happy. She admits it's the first time in her life she's been able to enjoy the simple things, as her worries have taken a back seat. The only thing that concerns her is the boss's health. She wants him to live as long as possible. She doesn't see the timer on his body and assumes it must be hidden somewhere. Deciding to follow Doha to the pool, she still can't spot the timer and guesses it's concealed under his shorts. A little later, Mika meets Jo Jae-yu, a producer who's genuinely impressed by her voice and talent. His compliments irritate Doha, and for the first time, he shows a hint of jealousy, though he tries to hide it. Back in his office, Doha asks his assistant to remove his favorite painting. It's grown tiresome. The secretary points out that Doha tends to lose interest in his favorite things after about 3 months, no matter how attached he once was. Agreeing, Doha decides not to avoid Mika but instead to spend as much time with her as possible. That evening, Doha won't let Mika leave and invites her out to dinner. As he watches her eat, he realizes his rule about keeping distance doesn't work. He's only growing more captivated by her. During the meal, Mika calls her father, who's in prison. It turns out he was once a successful businessman but went bankrupt and ended up behind bars because of debts. Now Mika has to support the whole family since her mom and her brother, recently back from the army, aren't working. After dinner, Doha makes her walk ahead of him so she's always in his line of sight. At one point, Mika almost stumbles, but he catches her and pulls her into a gentle embrace. It's a tender, romantic moment, and something strange happens. Mika notices her time isn't just stopped anymore, it's actually starting to grow. A little later, Mika and Doha head to the movies, where they run into an elderly woman worried about Mika's future. She's not Mika's real grandmother, her actual grandma passed away long ago. This woman used to be Mika's boss but grew so attached to her that she became like a friend and grandmother. Deeply concerned, she asks Doha to take good care of Mika. During the film, Mika tries to hold Doha's hand and notices her time increasing again. Teasing her, he almost kisses her by biting a cookie she's holding in her mouth. Mika's friend is touched by the whole story and urges her to keep going, that her happiness is right there with Doha and she should do whatever it takes to be with him. The next morning, Doha visits an art gallery with his therapist. He admits he's fallen in love with Mika but feels trapped because of his upcoming wedding to Bae. He hopes it's just a passing crush, but his therapist isn't convinced. Meanwhile, Mika receives the judge's decision from her audition. Despite the producer's compliments, she's rejected, which stings deeply. Later, when she runs into Jo Jae-yu in the hallway, she sharply calls him out for lying about her talent. The following day, Doha meets Mr. Chang to sign the contract. Bae is there, not just present but announcing her family is also ready to invest in Doha's project. This is her way of returning the sweet, thoughtful gift he gave her, even though Bae's family stands to lose money on this deal. They're willing to make sacrifices for the future of their marriage. At the same time, Doha's father hears about his younger son's success and considers handing over the company to him. Doha's older brother wants to stop this, but his own business is struggling, disappointing their father. After the negotiations, Bae invites Doha to dinner but grows jealous and angry when she sees his new driver is a woman. Suspecting something is going on between them, Bae does everything she can to humiliate Mika and highlight her financial struggles. She won't let Mika leave work early and forces her to drive them to the restaurant, then invites Mika to sit nearby during dinner, slipping her some money to stay close. Mika agrees, her will to survive outweighs her pride. Doha is frustrated by this and ends up kicking Mika out of the restaurant. He's angry at her, but also admits, quietly, to himself, that he's deeply in love with her. Hearing this, Mika doesn't realize that her life's time begins to rapidly increase. Trying to be completely honest, Doha confesses that he not only likes Mika but also wants to live with her. Mika feels disappointed by his bold declaration. She knows he already has a fiancé and that their wedding is coming up soon. Realizing she can't force someone to stay if their feelings aren't mutual, she quietly walks away. Bae watches from a distance, relieved that Mika left but disappointed in Doha's behavior. She suspects he's actually in love with his own driver. Back at home, Mika notices her mom and brother watching a drama where the heroine faces the same struggles she's dealing with. It makes her sad and forces her to question whether she's really indifferent toward Doha, or if she's just fooling herself. Deep down, she knows she loves him, but she's afraid to admit it. The next morning, Mika goes to Doha's house but finds out he already left for work without her. Doha is anxious about how she'll react and frustrated by her cool, distant attitude. Alone in his office, he replays their conversation from the night before and realizes he said some really foolish things. He was too blunt and forward, probably scaring her. Overwhelmed by his feelings, Doha calls a therapist for advice and support, but the therapist is busy with a more urgent patient, so he gets no help. Trying to escape her worries and work stress, Mika signs up for several auditions, hoping to land her first acting role. Young-hee notices her friend's odd behavior and guesses she's in love with Doha. Mika denies it and heads to her audition. While rehearsing, she can't memorize her lines because she keeps thinking about Doha, picturing him in her mind. Realizing she's not ready, she decides to quit, but runs into producer Jo Jae-yu. He tries to needle the struggling but talented Mika, but she stands her ground and snaps back sharply, clearly getting under his skin. Later, Mika returns to the office to pick up Doha so they can go to the airport. There, they meet Doha's older brother, Yoon Do-san, who just returned to Korea after a long trip. Yoon Do-san notices how protective Doha is of his driver and thinks he's unusually gentle. At home, Yoon Do-san convinces Mika to stay for dinner and shares some embarrassing childhood stories about Doha. Once Doha steps away, Yoon Do-san tells Mika that his brother is actually a kind, sensitive guy, and that she's the only one who's managed to melt his icy heart. He urges her to give Doha a chance, but Mika insists she doesn't have feelings for him, though she's starting to realize she's lying, both to Yoon Do-san and herself. Later, Doha and Mika sit down outside a restaurant to talk about their feelings and their last conversation. Mika says she's ready for a relationship, and even intimacy, as long as the man is by her side. Doha suddenly pulls her onto the couch but realizes those words are just empty promises. She's not ready to let anyone use her. He can't hurt her, because he's already fallen too deeply in love. The next morning, Yoon Do-san visits their late mother's grave. Meanwhile, Mika and Doha head to work. On the way, Mika flinches at every movement he makes and doesn't want him to touch her. She regrets her bold words from the night before but hopes Doha won't hurt her. Soon, Doha arrives home to spend lunch in the evening with his family. His father remains overly critical of the heir, while the older brother never misses a chance to tease him. At one point, the brother claims he knows about the driver and suspects there's something romantic between them. He vows to expose them the moment he gets the chance. After dinner, Bae notices that Mika has been waiting in the car for her fiancé all day, sparking a fresh wave of jealousy. Trying to keep her composure and hide her feelings, the wealthy fiancé drives home, but can't help wondering how to get rid of the annoying girl. The next morning, Bae insists on having a private talk with Mika. The heiress clearly knows too much about Mika and her family and is ready to ruin their lives. At the same time, she offers Mika clothes, jewelry, and unlimited money, on one condition: that Mika leaves Doha and quits her job as his driver. Shortly after, Doha visits a psychotherapist and finally accepts that he's in love with Mika and wants to be with her. Meanwhile, Mika visits her grandmother and confesses that she's been using Doha, but doesn't want to hurt him. The wise grandmother urges Mika to figure out whether she's truly indifferent to Doha, or if she's just making excuses to avoid admitting she loves him. On her way back to the car, Mika notices a crazy patient whose time of death keeps changing. At one moment, he has 54 years left to live. The next, his clock reads only 7 minutes. Sensing something terrible is about to happen, Mika follows him and sees the man enter the psychotherapist's office. The patient suddenly attacks the doctor with a knife, demanding medicine or threatening to kill everyone present. Mika tries to calm the man and watches the countdown on his wrist constantly shift. When only seconds remain, she lunges at him with a knife, but Doha grabs her, trying to protect her. The crazed patient stabs Doha in the back, causing him to bleed out and lose consciousness. Thankfully, he survives and is stable, but Mika stays in the hospital to be by his side. Tired of hiding the truth, Mika decides to come clean. Face to face with Doha, she admits she used him to avoid dying. She reveals that she can see a countdown timer on everyone's body, and she doesn't want to die in just a few months. Doha tells her he doesn't care about excuses or reasons. He loves her and wants to be with her. Then he kisses her, giving her a few more hours of life. Is life still meaningful if we know exactly how much time we have left, or is its true value in the uncertainty of not knowing when it'll end? Could the fear of the end actually be what drives us to live fully? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below, smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. Catch you in the next video.